seconds, and I'm going to go live now.
Welcome, everyone. On behalf of the Canadian Association of Physicists, I would like to welcome everyone to the third installment of the 2021 CAP Lecture Tour. My name is Dr. Dan Xiao. I'm an Assistant Professor of Physics at the University of Windsor. Along with me are Dr. Jordan Backlow, a researcher at the University of Sherbrooke, and Dr. Barbara Frisken, Professor of Physics at Simon Fraser University, will be hosting today's event. At any time and during and after the talk, you can submit questions to the web form linked on the YouTube page. The Canadian Association of Physicists is a national network of 1,700 member physicists working in Canadian educational, industrial, and research settings. As the voice of Canadian physicists to government, granting agencies, and international societies. It's a sponsor and supporter of physics events and activities in Canada, including the annual Congress, National Student Physics Conferences, and the publication of Physics in Canada. The CAP provides programs for students, including the Professional Certification Program, undergraduate student conferences, such as CUPC, CCU WIP, graduate student conferences, such as WIPC and CAM. There is a university prize examination and student scholarships. There is also the best student paper competitions in the CAP Annual Congress, and the Student Advisory Council, which is to establish a network of physics societies across Canada, and a lot more on the CAP website. Please join CAP to stay informed and get involved. It is free for during the PSC program for undergraduate physics students, and there is a 1-year free membership for graduate students. It's my great pleasure to welcome today's speaker, Dr. James Chow from Princess Margaret Cancer Center at the University of Toronto. Dr. Chow completed his medical physics residency training in the London Regional Cancer Center, London. Then he worked as a medical physicist and deputy radiation safety officer in Grand River Regional Cancer Center, Kitchener, for a few years, before becoming a medical physicist in the Princess Margaret Cancer Center, an affiliated hospital of University of Toronto. In addition to being a medical physicist with clinical duties, Dr. Chow is an associate professor in the Department of Radiation Oncology at University of Toronto, affiliated scientist of the Techna Institute for the Advancement of Technology for Health, University Health Network, and a member of the Techmety Center for Artificial Intelligence Research and Education in Medicine, University of Toronto. As a medical physicist interested in radiation dosimetry and treatment planning, Dr. Chow uses Monte Carlo method to develop precise and accurate dose delivery process in radiation treatment. He studied the DNA damage of cancer cells in nanoparticle-enhanced radiotherapy and is interested in machine learning applications in radiation treatment planning, radiation dose delivery, and cancer patient education and care. The title of today's 2021 CAP Lecture Tour presentation is Monte Carlo Simulation on Artificial Intelligence in Cancer Therapy and Medical Imaging. Welcome, Dr. Chow.
Hello, everybody. So today's this seminar is about Monte Carlo simulation and AI in cancer therapy and medical imaging. So give me a minute to introduce my working pace. Prince Margaret Cancer Center is one of the top 5 cancer research centers in the world. And we deal with over 11,000 radiation treatment courses per year and over 400 patients every day. So it is a big and busy cancer hospital. For today, the contents of this seminar include in brief review of cancer therapy and medical imaging, highlighting radiotherapy. I will explain the basic concept of Monte Carlo simulation, AI, cloud computing, and big data. And I will say something about the simulation and machine learning applications in radiotherapy and medical imaging. And finally, I will say something about the challenge and future perspective. For cancer therapy, we have many options to the cancer patients. For example, radiotherapy, surgery, and chemotherapy. However, I would like to say radiotherapy is very important because about over 50% of cancer patients will be treated by radiation therapies, and it contributes to about 40% towards the curative treatment. To understand the radiation treatment process, first, the patient visiting the hospital will be examined by a radiation oncologist, who is a cancer doctor. The doctor will prescribe radiation dose to the tumor of the patients, and the patient will have a bookings to have the CT simulations. In the CT simulation, we will acquire the 3-dimensional anatomy of the patients, and we will use these informations to create a radiation treatment plan. And the patient will have a patient setup verification booking, and we will have a patient-specific QA and plan evaluations. And after that process, we can start the treatment delivery. And after the treatments, we will evaluate the treatment outcome for patients follow-up. We use a lot of imaging modalities, for example, CT, MRI, and ultrasounds with different spatial resolution and tumor sensitivity to help for the radiation treatment plan. For radiation dose delivery, when the patient visits the treatment unit, the patient will be set up by the radiation therapist on the couch, and we use medical linear accelerators to produce megavoltage photon beams to irradiate the tumor inside the patients. Now, the calculation of dose distribution in a radiation treatment plan is very important. Look at these CT diagrams telling you the lung tumor, which is the yellow area. The tumor is irradiated and cross-fired by 2 radiation beams. And the planner of the treatment plan will decide the beam setup. They can change the energy of the beam, angle of the beam, field size of the beam in order to achieve a very good dose distribution or dose coverage at the tumor. And at the same time, we can spare the critical organs or the normal tissues, for example, the spinal cord in this CT image. The prescription of this radiation treatment is 50 gray per 25 fractions. That means the patients need to visit the hospital 25 times. And for each time, we will deliver 2 gray per fraction to the patients. We treat the patients from Monday to Friday per week. Therefore, the patients need to visit the hospital 5 weeks in order to complete the whole course of treatment. Now, Monte Carlo simulation is a very good mathematical algorithms based on repeated random samplings. It is a mathematical method to determine a numerical results when some traditional methods cannot find out the absolute solutions of some mathematical problems. One example to show you the simulation is to calculate the value of pi. Now look at here, we define a unit square with area AS equal to 1. And from there, we draw a quarter circles. The area of the quarter circles, AC, is equal to pi over 4. We define the fraction P of random points inside the quarter circle. So P is equal to AC over AS, and it is equal to pi over 4 because the area of the unit square is equal to 1. Now we use the random points N, and we define the random points inside the quarter circles, and it is equal to NC, and you can see the red dots inside the quarter circles. So we can write down an expressions pi equals 4 times NC divided by N. And from this expression, we can calculate the value of pi. You can ask me a question, how big is the number of trials or number of histories in the simulations? Look at this diagram telling you the relationship between the number of trials and the uncertainty of pi. You'll find that if we increase the number of trials or increase the computing time of the simulations, we can get a more accurate Monte Carlo results. There are so many applications of Monte Carlo simulations. We can apply it to study problems in financial market. We can study problem of traffic flows, physics problem, for example, in astrophysics, quantum field theory. But here, I would like to tell you something about the simulation applications in radiotherapy. As a member of International Social Society, I learned that Bernard Shaw said, progress is impossible without change, and those who cannot change their minds cannot change anything. Now we find that AI brought about sweeping changes in recent years, in particular radiotherapy, and AI changed the ways people think. So what is AI? It is an attractive topic. Just emergence, a computer or machines having human intelligence can help you to complete a task. And we know that with the rapid computer advance of high performance computing, big data analytics, and machine learning algorithms in medicine, this digital method in radiotherapy is the way to go. Now, machine learning is a subset of the AI, and we find that machine learning enables the computations of large data sets while recognizing the complexity within the detailed patterns. To learn about machine learning, I would like to say something about the neural network. The neural network contains the input and output layer. And between these two layers, we have the hidden layers. We have the channels between the layers, and we have the weight, and we have the bias at the loops. So we can adjust the data through varying the weight and the bias. And we have the activation functions at the loops. They are the nonlinear functions, for example, segment function or tangential functions. This function is to decide whether we can transfer the data from one layer to another layer. When you have the data, input to the input layer, and you pick up the results from the output layer, we have the forward propagations. From the forward propagations, we will have the predicted results from the machine learning model. And you compare the predicted results and the actual results, and you find out the deviation. If the deviation between the actual and the predicted results is very big or is unacceptable, you will need to do backward propagations. That means the model will readjust the weight and the bias in order to minimize the deviation between the actual result and the predicted results. Now, when the deviation is acceptable, we will say that we have verified the machine learning model, and we can use the model to predict the results of what we wanted. So machine learning can answer questions based on data after training, and it takes advantage of big data cloud advancement. And I will give you some examples of machine learning in radiation treatment plannings later in this seminar. To sum up, machine learning has 7 steps. First, we need to collect and gather the data. We need to prepare the data or reformat the data. We need to select an appropriate machine learning model. And we need to fit the data to the model to perform machine training. And we evaluate the deviations between the predicted result and the actual results. And from there, we continue to fine-tune the machine learning model, and the verified model can be used to predict the results of what we wanted. So that is all the steps of the machine learning. Now, cloud computing is important and is related to machine learning. What is cloud computing? It is an online computing resources scalable to the users. They use a pay-as-you-go approach. That means if you pay more money to the providers, for example, Google, Amazon, IBM, Microsoft, you can purchase more resources to finish your work. So why is cloud? Why is called cloud computing? That is inspired by the sample representing the intellect. Now look at this cartoon. We have the data fit to the input, and we have the results from the output. Now we have a lot of very complicated computer infrastructure between the input and output. But as the user, I don't care that infrastructure. I only care the input and output. Therefore, I use the sample to cover them. And that is the idea of cloud computing. Now look at this diagram telling you the relationship between the number of loops or number of processes and the computing time. Because we use the pay-as-you-go approach, if I have more money, I can buy a greater number of loops or computing processes to finish my job. Therefore, I can reduce the computing time and get the job finished quicker and easier. Now, big data processing, we find that the innovation of cloud computing moves the data storage from the user local workstation to the remote cloud. And that makes the data transfer, storage, and processing very feasible. And we use the term big data to describe the data sets that are too large and complex to be dealt with. You may ask me the question, my external hard disk or internal hard disk has thousands of gigabyte storage, terabyte storage. Even my USB drive has a lot of space to store information. Why I need to store the information in cloud? Now, let me answer your question in radiotherapy by considering only one cancer patient and to see the size of data of one cancer patient in radiotherapies. We have treatment planning information, for example, radiation beam settings, dose prescriptions, and we have electronic medical records, for example, blood test results or some laboratory test results for the patients. Not to say we have a lot of medical imaging data for the patient. For example, MRI, CT, ultrasounds. So we have a lot of data for just one cancer patient. And not to say we have so many cancer patients in the hospital. And this amount of data is growing and accumulating day after day. Therefore, big data processing is very important in radiotherapy. There are so many applications of Monte Carlo simulation in radiotherapy. In this lecture, I just can highlight some of them to you. The first example of application is the questions: how many operating rooms are needed to manage non-elective surgical cases? To answer this question, you need to input some data to the Monte Carlo model. For example, you need to find out the patients per minute, for each case class. You need to find out the mean surgical length and standard deviation for each case class. And also you need to find out the cleanup and the setup time of the operating room. But they are not difficult because they can be acquired from the statistic of the hospital. But I want to ask you the question, is it I enter this data information to the simulation model and I can get the result and finish the job? No, it's not like that. You need to verify the model. So look at this diagram. It is the relationship between the inner arrival time and the patient waiting time. Now you see the solid curve is the actual results from the statistic, and the broken curve is the Monte Carlo results. So you need to compare, you find out the deviation between the Monte Carlo results and the actual results. And if that deviation is acceptable or is insignificant, we can accept the model, or we can say we have verified the Monte Carlo model. And we can use this Monte Carlo model to calculate the results. So look at the results. We find that if you increase the number of operating rooms, you will have a reduction of patient waiting time. So that is the Monte Carlo results from the model. Another interesting Monte Carlo application is to study the prostate treatment delivery accuracy due to internal organ motion and physical setup errors. Now we learned that the patients need to go to the hospital a couple of weeks in order to finish the whole course of treatment. Now for a prostate cancer patients, when the patient visits the treatment unit, the patient will be set up by the radiation on therapists on the couch. And because of the human variation, there may be a change of the prostate or the target position from Monday to Tuesday to Wednesday. For example, the patient may be shift a little bit left or right in 1 millimeter. On Monday, maybe Tuesday will be shifted to another side, right? So that is physical setup errors. Now we have another uncertainty we call internal organ motion. For example, the breathing of the patients and the bladder and the rectum feeling of the patient will change the position of the target. That means the prostate, in the treatments. And that uncertainties will affect the delivery accuracy. So we want to study that. Now, because these two uncertainties, they are random error, so we can use Monte Carlo simulations. Now, we studied 100 simulated full course treatments. So what we do is we first input some experimental measurements from different literatures for internal organ motion and patient errors to the Monte Carlo models. And then we use the computer to generate a random number in order to change the position of the prostate to a new position, but it has to be within the range based on the literatures. For a new position of the prostate, we have to recalculate the dose distribution because the position of the target is changed. That means the dose distribution is changed. So we need to recalculate the dose distribution, and we need to compare the new calculated dose distribution with the original dose calculation, and we can justify the accuracy of dose delivery. Now, the results tell us that after 100 simulated full course treatment study, for a margins between the CTV and the PTV equal to 1 centimeter. CTV is the clinical target volume and PTV is the planning target volume. We found that if we can add 5 millimeter margins, dosimetric margin, we can improve the delivery accuracy in an acceptable level. Now you may think that, oh, I don't understand this very much. I don't understand what CTV, PTV, I don't understand the details of treatment plannings. But here, I would like to highlight that using Monte Carlo simulation, you can save a lot of time in this study. Like emerging, if you want to carry out this study manually, that means for 100 simulated course of treatment, you need to wait for the patient coming to the hospital, and then you acquire the CT image of the patient. And then you find out the new position of the prostate, you compare it with the original position, and then we calculate the dose, and then you justify the accuracies one by one, 100 times. It may take you a couple of weeks to finish the study. But use Monte Carlo simulation, because that is a random error study. You may just take a couple hours, you can finish this study. So you save a lot of time. Another simulation study is related to the medical imaging. You can look at this diagram telling you a medical linear accelerators. We have the mega voltage beam, which is the vertical beam to treat the tumors inside the patient. But you can see here is the horizontal kilo voltage beam from the cone beam CT. Now this beam will help to generate a cone beam CT image used in daily patient setup and improve the patient delivery, radiation dose delivery accuracy. The problem is that treatment planning system can only calculate the treatment dose from the photon beams, but they cannot calculate the imaging dose. However, that imaging dose will be absorbed by the patient, so we want to calculate that. We want to determine the total dose absorbed by the patients. So we use Monte Carlo simulation to calculate the imaging dose from the cone beam CT. Now look at this CT image, and we actually use Monte Carlo simulation to calculate the dose distributions from the cone beam CT, and we add the imaging dose back to the treatment dose. We evaluate the amount of imaging dose, which is about 1% to 2.5% of the treatment dose. We also try the different energies of the cone beam CT beam from 100 kVp to 140 kVp. So we can use Monte Carlo simulation to calculate the total dose absorbed by the patients, including both the imaging dose and the treatment dose. Dose calculation is also very important. It is well known that Monte Carlo simulation can give a very accurate dose calculation, in particular in a heterogeneous medium. So Monte Carlo simulations is used to be the benchmark to evaluate the performance of other dose calculation methods. For example, collapsed convolution and adaptive convolution method in the treatment planning system. Now in this study, we use the NRC code for the Monte Carlo simulations, and we use 6 and 18 MV photon beams. We use a heterogeneous phantom in this study. So that phantom contains an heterogeneous layer sandwiched by 2 water layers. And we have a single beam geometries. We calculate the dose along the horizontal axis and the vertical axis using Monte Carlo simulations, CCC, and the AC dose calculation methods. Now let's look at the results. We found that inside the heterogeneous mediums, there's a big dose deviations between the dose calculated by the Monte Carlo simulation, CCC, and the AC when we changed the medium density from 0.7 to 0.05 gram per cc. Now, when you look at this diagram telling you the dose along the horizontal axis, you still find a big deviation between Monte Carlo and other dose calculation methods. So we can see that Monte Carlo method is a very good method or benchmark to compare the accuracy with other dose calculation methods in the treatment planning system, especially when we need to calculate those in some heterogeneous medium. This is an interesting example of DNA damage and narrow dosimetry. Now, first, we need to have a look about the aim of radiotherapy. So radiotherapy, we want to conform dose distribution at the tumor and at the same time to spare the normal tissue and critical organs. Now look at this CT image. We have that red contours. This is the prostate. We have the prostate cancer patients. We want to have a very good dose coverage at the prostate, but we have the bladder and the rectum above and below the targets. So we want to conform the dose as much as possible to the prostate, but at the same time, we want to minimize the dose to be absorbed by the critical organs. Now, how to do that? Using the external beam. Now, one solution is to consider the nanoparticle enhanced radiotherapy. That means we need to add nanoparticles, for example, gold nanoparticles to the tumor. In this case, it's the prostate. We found that with the nanoparticle additions, we can enhance the contrast of the tumor in medical imaging and enhance the accuracy of the radiation beam targeting. We also found that the particle additions can enhance the dose absorption in the tumors. Now, why narrow dosimetry is important in the simulations? Because we want to study the DNA damage. Now, why DNA damage is important? It is because when the cancer cell, the DNA of the cancer cell, when the cancer cell wanted to reproduce after the cell cycle, the cancer cell needs to duplicate the DNA. If the DNA is damaged, that means the cancer cell cannot reproduce it after the cell cycle. And we have to say because of the DNA damage. Now we use radiations to damage the DNA, and we find that nanoparticle can enhance this process. To study that, we just have some simulations. You see here is a gold nanoparticle, and we have the photons interact with the gold nanoparticle, and the particle produce some photoelectric electrons, and those electrons move to the DNA and cause DNA damage. Now, from these simulation geometries, we have a gold nanoparticle the DNA and the photons, which is the horizontal line. We can change the size of the particle, the distance between the particle and the DNA, and also the energy of the photon. In the simulation, we are going to calculate DER, which is dose enhancement ratio. It is the ratio of the dose in the DNA with gold nanoparticle addition to the dose in the DNA without particle additions. Now let's have a look about the results. We change the particle size, we change the distance between the particle and the DNA, and we change the energy of the photons. We find that the kilovoltage photons can be enhanced by the gold nanoparticles by factors of 2.2 to 3.7 compared to the photons without gold nanoparticles. And based on that simulation geometries, we found that the largest dose enhancement ratio was in the geometry of 100 nanometer diameter particle located 30 nanometer from the DNA, and the energy of the photon beam is equal to 150 keV. So we concluded that those enhancement of the DNA changed it with the particle size, distance between the particle and the DNA, and only slightly changed it with the energy of the photons. Now let's talk about machine learning in radiotherapies. There's so many applications of machine learning in radiotherapies. Here I would like to highlight some of them. The first interesting example is auto contouring. Contouring is very important in radiation treatment planning. Now remember, we need to calculate the dose distribution in a radiation treatment plan. And from the dose distribution, we have to justify the dose coverage of the tumor and the radiation dose sparing of the critical organs. You need to define the volume of interest of the tumor and the critical organs for the treatment planning system, so the computer know where and how large is that volume of tumor and the critical organs. You have to do contouring, and that is a very time-consuming process, and it used to be done by the radiation oncologist or the planner. So the radiation oncologist needs to contour the tumor, for example, slide by slide in a CT image set, and that is very time consuming. Now, auto contouring is a good idea because we ask the computer to automatically contour the tumor and the critical organs on behalf of the users. But the problem is that the auto contouring method or the auto contouring system is not perfect. It may make some mistake, or maybe some contours in some of the slides is not correct or not perfect. So the user need to review all the contours done by the auto contouring system, and they need to make corrections for that. Now, the idea of using machine learning is that when the user reviewed all the contours and make some corrections, they can feedback the mistake to the machine, so that the machine will learn from the mistake, and next time the treatment planning system will not make the same mistake again. So we have auto contouring plus deep learning approach. Now we compare the manual contouring, auto contouring, and auto contouring with machine learning. We found that if you use manual contouring only, just the user manual contours the tumors, it takes you 20 minutes. It's quite time consuming, but you can save 7.8 minutes if you use the auto-contouring approach. If you add machine learning to the auto-contouring, you can save 10 minutes. So actually, machine learning can help the auto-contouring in the treatment planning of the cancer patients. Another example of machine learning is that we learned that we need to calculate the dose distribution of a radiation treatment plan. We can use Monte Carlo simulation to do the calculation, or we can use other dose calculation methods to calculate the dose distributions. But how about, can we use machine learning to predict the dose distributions? Yes, we tried that. So you look at here is the machine training. We tried the different cancer sites, like the prostate, lung, rectum, and we used 100 of previously treated radiation pans for machine trainings. And then for some new patients, we generate the treatment plan using the treatment planning system formally, and we use machine learning to generate a radiation treatment plan. We compare the dose distributions for different treatment sites, and then we found that the deviations between the machine learning and treatment planning system is very, very small. So we can say that machine learning can help us to acquire the dose distribution of a radiation treatment plan in radiotherapy. Now, how about to use machine learning to predict the dose distribution index? In radiation treatment plan QA or plan evaluation, we need to calculate a lot of dose volume index. And those dose volume index, for example, the dose distribution index here, can be calculated using some mathematical formulas based on dose volume data from the dose volume histograms. But we want to see if machine learning can predict that index without calculation using those formulas. So instead of using all the data from a dose volume histogram, we just select the 5 data points and input the data of these 5 points to the machine learning algorithms in order to predict the dose volume index. Now look at the results here. We tried the different algorithms and we examine the deviations in terms of root mean square errors, and also we investigate the prediction speed and training times. And we concluded that machine learning actually can help us to predict the dose distribution index or other dose volume index in treatment planning QA. This is an interesting application of machine learning in radiation dose delivery. Now we have a delivery method called the intensity modulated radiotherapies. And that delivery technique can help us to achieve a very good dose distributions at the tumor and dose sparings to the critical organs. Now, however, to do this treatment delivery, the treatment planning system will calculate a fluence map of the photon beam. And that photon beams can be achieved by a number of beam segments generated by a complicated mathematical algorithms. We call it MLC leaf sequencing algorithm. Now, using machine learning, we try to use the algorithm to recognize the different apertures of the beam segments and try to predict the beam segments in order to generate the fluence map. That will simplify the leaf sequencings in this radiotherapy technique. Now, chatbot is interesting thing. Chatbots are the next big things in the era of conservational services. We have nowadays many service providers, for example, IBM, Watson, Microsoft Bot, and so on. Chatbot is a computer program, and it is a very good user interface for knowledge transfer between the provider and the users. Some ongoing projects, for example, a COVID-19 Q&A chatbot and a radiation safety bot to transfer radiation safety knowledge to the radiation staff and the patients in a cancer hospital. Now let's have a look at the challenge of these internet-based technologies. We found that there's a lack of personnel who knows both computer simulations, AI, and radiotherapies. We know that we need to have the patient's data and information in the cloud. Therefore, collaborations among multiple institutions for data privacy, security, and ownership is very important. We also found that for different manufacturers, they will provide different services and platforms to us with their standard. So we want support from them for standardization of the data set. For the future directions, we know that the data volume will continue to grow, right? For example, the cancer patients' data in the hospitals. So we have more and more data, so we need to focus on the data allocation and storage. We also need to build some user-friendly graphical interface so that users who have low computer coding experience can build their data processing applications. We have other future directions. For example, we need to think about how to use the big data effectively, and that involves study on data filtering and data mining. And we need to continue to study data privacy, security, real-time decision-making, and the virtual machine training. And for the users who do not have knowledge on the underlying structure of the machine learning algorithm, it's very difficult to understand the real concept of machine learning. But we have to make them available to master the virtual machines easily in order to produce useful results. So that is all of this seminar. Thank you very much.
Okay, so I have some questions here that the audience has provided, and please feel free to submit some more. So the first question we have for James is, but first, by the way, thank you very much for that very interesting talk. How do you explain to a non-medical background person, however, like a physicist, how to help identify tumors from medical images obtained? So how do you, I guess, train a physicist to build these models?
In fact, just for the medical imaging, it's not enough to identify the tumor. We need a lot of other tests. For example, we need to do the biopsy of the tumors and to do other things in order to justify whether it is a tumor or not. For a medical imaging, of course, if you can see there's a change of the contrast, in the organs, maybe you can identify that as a tumor, but there may be other reasons for that. Also, different imaging modalities will have different contrast. For example, if you want to observe the tumors in of the brain, or of the brain, and the CT image is not good. Yeah, but you have to use MRI, because MRI you can observe a very good contrast of soft tissue or the tissue with density close to water. So we need to use different imaging modalities, and then we can see there's a change of contrast, or you can use some functional imaging. For example, we have functional MRI. You can investigate a compositional change of the tumor, and from that you can identify the tumor using imaging. But I have to say that may not be enough, because you may also have some other tests, to assist you to make the final decision.
Okay, thank you. The next question is, for Monte Carlo simulation, which platform would one use? Is MATLAB well used here?
If you want to calculate the radiation dose, I think everybody will use the XNRC Monte Carlo code. It is, I think it's made by Dr. David Rogers, and it's free of charge to be downloaded from the internet. That is a very good, and it's the benchmark Monte Carlo code to calculate the radiation dose in radiotherapy. Now, to do the Monte Carlo simulation, basically, if you have a random number generator, basically you can do that, the jobs. So some platforms, for example, MATLAB has a Monte Carlo routines. You can call a random number. You can have a random number generated from Excel if you have the DAG routines. Free of charge, maybe Python, that computer language have routines. You can call the random number, and then you can start some Monte Carlo work. And for radiotherapies, for radiation dose calculation, we may need some more specific Monte Carlo code. So I would suggest the XNRC code, and some people also use the Gen 4 code from the CRN in Europe, and it's also possible.
Okay, thank you. The next question is, how does one perform the evaluation of a model in machine learning? Can you please illustrate it with data? It might be, I don't know if you have slides prepared for that, but do you have any examples of how you actually evaluate a model?
Yeah, I may just tell you here. When you prepare the data for the machine trainings, you may just divide the data for 70% would be 60% for the machine training, and then the remaining 30 to 40% for verifications. Okay, so you just run the machine learning models using the 70% of data. And then when you think the model is okay, and you will use the remaining 30% actual data to compare that data with the predicted result from the model, and then you can see the deviations for that. So that is the one of the important step in the machine learning. Yeah.
Okay. Next question, have big cloud computing providers allowed some of the computations you described to become feasible that wouldn't have been otherwise if hospitals and universities had to provide their own capabilities? Has this made any of these treatments possible that weren't before?
Yeah, that's a very interesting thing. I think we have a lot of patient data, and we need collaborations. For example, the Princess Margaret is a very big cancer center, has a lot of patients, but we need collaboration with other centers. The ideal thing is to have all the patients uploaded to the cloud. So we have a public cloud, with all the patient information, for example, within Ontario, or within Canada. So everybody can use those informations, right? But it's not simple like that, because think about the think about computer, cloud computing is very simple. You just upload all the things together. But it's not like that, because we have a lot of policies, hospital policies to follow. We have the patients' privacy issue, security issues, right? So it's not easy. We need a lot of discussion among different hospital and cancer center. We need to have agreements that to use those patients' information as safe and also legal. So that is something we need to concern. Yeah. So sometimes in the seminar, you may think cloud computing, actually can help for the radiotherapy, because we can share the information of the patients very easily, right? Yeah, but it's not like that. Yeah, because there's some other, for example, security, for example, the privacy problem we have to think about.
So I guess a follow-up question for myself for that is, if you had to do this on your own computers and servers in the hospital and couldn't, if privacy laws said you cannot use Amazon or Google servers, would you be able to do most of the same work, but just maybe more expensive? Or would it not be possible?
Yeah, I think you can do that, but you have to do application. I think there's some committees in the hospital. You can talk to them and explain, I want to do this, and they may have may give you some professional comments, on this. But you need to go through some committees to get approval to do that. Yeah.
Okay, and finally, we have a question about asking if you have any recommendations for literature on Monte Carlo methods in radiotherapy. Maybe you prefer to answer that, and if you have any offhand, you can answer that now, or you can answer that by email after if you.
Yeah, maybe I will answer you. If you look at the YouTube video again, visit this video, you may see that in my slide, I will have some footnotes of some reference about Monte Carlo simulation in radiotherapies, and some of them are written by me. And but you're welcome to email me, and I can give you some good reference. Yeah.
Okay, I'll pass the email address of the questioner on to after.
Okay.
And I don't see any more questions at the moment. So I guess I'd like to thank you very much again for a very interesting talk.
Oh, thank you very much. Thank you.
And I believe Dan will have something to say.
Thank you very much again, Dr. Chow, for the fantastic talk. The CAP 2021 lecture tour continues next week on March the 4th. Our speaker will be Dr. Adina Bluikenmeyer from University of Ottawa. The title of her talk is Dive into the World of Atoms to Discover Quantum Materials. That lecture will be in French with English captions. At the end, a big thank you to everyone who is watching this from home.